Hey, what's going on, friends? My name is Jeff Sokol, and what we're doing here in this video is we're going to make a leather collar for our dog Sargent, and you're going to see step by step exactly how I did that. He's a big, heavy, tough pup, and so we made him a big, heavy, tough collar. Stay tuned. Okay, so what we're doing here, we have Sarge's old collar, and we're just sizing it up with a piece of leather strap that I purchased from our local leather store. And it's I think that strap right there was probably about an 8 or 9 ounce strap, so it's a pretty heavy duty strap. So I'm just measuring out right here, and what we need to look at it, that when I draw the lines on here and what I'm skiving off right there, as you can see, my skiving knife is not as sharp as it should be. I'm kind of making a butcher mess of the entire thing, but I do eventually get it worked out. What those lines are for is because we fold over one end of the belt, right? So we have to cut that down by half, so it's going to be even whenever we add the rest of the belt onto it. Because when we make a belt like this or a collar like this, we have to make sure that we're actually using 2 pieces of leather, and we're sewing those 2 pieces of leather together. So as you can see right here, I want a thicker collar than the one he has right there, or a wider collar rather, and I want to use the same width of that old collar for the straps themselves. And we're just making our measurements, just taking simple measurements off of the other collar and transposing those onto, or transcribing those rather, onto the new collar. And you're going to see me make even a bigger mess out of that other collar, and we're just stropping. Guys, this is an uncut video, so this is I did do some cutting on it, some editing on it, but I have like 5 hours of footage here that I condensed down just by speeding it up. So you're gonna see everything warts and all, so you can learn from mistakes that I've made, and hopefully you don't make the same mistake. So make sure that you have a very sharp skiving knife whenever you start the process. As you can see, I sharpened it and things started to go a lot more smoothly. And I keep having to strap it because I did not have as good of an edge on there as I should have had before I got started. Skiving is not something that I've had a lot of experience with. I do it when I have to, and I do it on pretty much every belt or every knife sheath I make. I have to skive something, but it's usually a much smaller area. You know, something like, you know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and which is pretty easy. And now, of course, I keep my knife a lot sharper. So the first thing I'm going to do, once I get all that stuff, once I get the whole piece marked out the way I want, is I'm going to cut the holes in it where they go. And this is going to be the fold over piece that the buckle is going to go on. What I'm doing here, I'm using a square to make sure I get a good straight edge. We'll just cut those other pieces off. And that's going to be the width of our straps that are going to have the belt holes on them. Try another cheap skiving knife that came didn't work. It's a broken razor. Replace your razors regularly, guys. It makes a world of difference. There's no reason to struggle with a dull blade. It cuts so much more easily. I know that sounds like common sense, but it's you know, as the more leather you cut, it gets progressively harder to cut, and then you change your blade and you're like, whoa, you know, it's like butter all over again. So it's pretty nice, and you can see it's starting to take the shape of the collar that we want. Rounding the edges there. And we're using our edge beveler to just clean up those edges, because we don't want them to be sharp when we're working on it. It's just a habit that I've gotten into, is having all of my edges beveled as I'm working on something. That makes it so much easier to it makes it so much easier to burnish after the fact. Here, all we're doing is cutting in our lines. That we're going to use as an outline for our patterns whenever we stencil it, and we're going to also use that as a guide where we're going to put our where we're going to sew in our seam. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, our dog's name is Sarge, so we're going to put his name right in the middle of the collar as well, as you saw at the beginning. Punching our holes in. And this tends to be my process for some reason. I tend to complicate these things, and I tend to kind of jump around whenever I'm doing something. It's like whatever comes to my mind at the time that needs to get done. I do not have a laid out formula for doing all of these things. I mean, there is a basic formula, but you know, basic step-by-step process, but a lot of it's pretty fluid. It just comes from experience, so we can move around depending on what we need to have happen at the time. I use my rulers a lot, as you can see, to make straight lines and to make measurements and to make sure that we're going to get the name in the center of the collar where we want it, and that the you know, that the 5 letters in his name are all lined up. So I mark out everything, because there are no second chances. Once you hit that stamp on there, there is no second chance. That's it. If you mess that up, and I've messed it up, I've gotten letters turned around before, or whatever the case is, and so I always do this first, because if I mess it up, then it won't take me that long to start over. I'm just erasing my pencil lines in there, and that's just using a modeling tool and smoothing out some of the edges that the stencils leave, because sometimes they'll leave a square around the letter. So just use that modeling tool and smooth it out. Now we're going on and starting our stencil. These are just the little plant stencils. They I like them. I think they serve the purpose. Kind of looks like a little agave plant to me, or an aloe plant or something. They come in pretty much every beginner leather kit that you can find on Amazon. As a matter of fact, guys, for simplicity, all of these tools that I'm using, with the exception of that modeling tool, all of these tools that I'm using pretty much came from a very inexpensive kit on Amazon. I think it was about 40 bucks. So if you want to get started in leathercraft, it's not expensive. The most expensive thing to get started in leathercraft is really just the leather. So we're stenciling in our design here. Like I said, this video is uncut, so it's a you know, you're gonna see the whole thing. So, but the video is only about 30 minutes long, so it's not bad. And if you want to, you can fast forward a little bit too. But you know, one thing I want to stress whenever you're doing this type of work using stencils, in creating patterns with stencils, you want to make sure that you're firmly planted, you know, in each individual cut, and that you rock it back and forth. You know, you're not seeing it here, but because you know, or as much because it's in fast forward, but I'm hitting that thing multiple times. I'm seeding it once, and then I'm giving it several whacks afterwards. And I'm rocking it back and forth as well, side to side, to make sure that the whole thing is seated in there well, and that the design is taken. I'll go in there and just use the cedar tool, and it's SEEDER, and just accenting those cuts. See that? Now I'm marking out where my holes are going to be. And I'll punch those out momentarily. Right here I was measuring to see what kind of design I was going to put on the inside there. At first I was going to do a type of a basket weave, but I decided not to put the basket weave, but also I decided to put studs in the collar. And so what I was doing with the ruler is I was actually marking out the spots where I'm going to put the studs. And so we have that marked out with the edge of the modeling tool. And right here, what we're doing is that the tool I have in my hand is actually a backgrounder. So kind of filling in that blank space with a backgrounding tool. This is one of those parts where I just completely skip the process, and instead of making the holes, I backgrounded instead after I'd already drawn lines. So I know where my holes are supposed to be, and those are already marked out, and I can see them very well. Right here I was testing different colors, see what color I wanted to make the collar. That's a saddle tan and a briar brown, and ended up going with the saddle tan. I don't even think it was a saddle tan. I think it was just what they call tan. I call it saddle tan. So here we go. I was also testing out putting the studs on too. Make sure that everything works and everything looks good. I highly recommend testing patterns on scrap leather prior to testing it on the piece that on your good leather that you're going to be working on. You can see where it says tan, that's just some gel antique. And we use a piece of sheep's wool to wipe off the excess. So we'll put it on there, we'll apply it with the sheep's wool and kind of wipe it in. Then we'll use the rag to buff it. You can see it comes out pretty nice. It's already started to look like a nice belt. Now for the other side. It might seem that you could probably just get away with using one strap of leather, and you probably could, but on this build, since we're making a belt and we're putting studs in there, we are actually going to have to cover. I wanted to cover the back of the studs, and so I wanted a true heavy collar, because Sarge is a big dog. He's half Rottweiler, half German Shepherd, and he's just a big dog. So you saw me cut the holes in earlier, and so now all I'm doing, I'm just placing these round studs, these domes, on every other one, and then there's going to be a short spike in between those. And those just have prongs on the back of them that you can hammer down on the other side of the leather. And I didn't want that to be visible, and I didn't want Sarge to wear them off or something like that. So I just decided to protect the back of it with another piece of leather altogether. Plus, I think it makes it look more finished when it's sewn. So I tell you, this was a 24-inch collar, and I sew everything by hand because I like the way a saddle stitch comes out when I sew it by hand. I think it comes out well, and I just like the way it looks. I'm used to sewing leather sheaths, and that'll take me 20-30 minutes for a regular fold over knife sheath. But this thing with you know, the 2 pieces of leather and 4 feet of it, you know, because it's 24 inches long and you got to do that each side. So it took hours. I didn't anticipate it taking that long, but now I know why guys spend the money to go ahead and put in, you know, good leather sewing machines, especially if they're making tack and stuff like that for horses. So you can see it's really coming together here. Put some rivets around his name. So now we can see that it's starting to look good. Now, a lot of people would just leave it like that and just cut some holes in and put the buckle on and call it a day. But I'm too stubborn for that, I guess. I really wanted it to be a really nice piece that that I could be proud of, so I decided just to go the extra mile and just do it what I consider to be the right way. So sorry I don't show the entire bottom of this thing. It's kind of long for the camera angle that I had. What I'm doing here is that I'm taking this French skive and I'm digging out the holes. I'm digging out holes where the back of the studs are. Okay, so the pointed studs, the spikes, are screwed in. They're screwed together. So there are little bumps, or well, it's the top of the screw is what it is, and it's going to stick out. So I dug out those spots on there so that they would seat and be more flush. That way they wouldn't stick up in the collar and separate it out whenever I go to glue it up. So right here we're just sizing up and making sure that the back side of the collar is even. And I went ahead and colored the back side of the collar. And I put my initials on the back of it. I don't guess I had footage of that. But all I did was I took that modeling tool, which comes on one side of the modeling. On one side it has a modeling spoon, on the other side it has a stylus. And with the wet leather, I just took that stylus and I wrote my initials. And then I also used a pin to kind of follow it up. And then when I covered it with the antiquing, briar brown antique, it actually just it just filled in beautifully, as you can see right there. And I burnished the edges along the way as well, because on the buckle side it needs to be burnished before I fold it over. So that's what you saw me doing there. And we're taking our barge's contact cement, which is the best the best thing to use. In this scenario. So I used to use this leather weld, and it still works pretty well. Now I'm just waiting on it to dry. I used to use leather weld, but it doesn't even come close to the efficiency of barges. And there we go. We're beveling off, making sure all of our edges are good to go. This is kind of a rough job. We're gonna put it on the belt sander as well. So I'll just try to make sure everything's nice and even, and then turn on the belt sander. This is a belt sander, guys, I just got from Harbor Freight. It does a really wonderful job. That's 80 grit sandpaper on there. It does a really wonderful job at evening out all those lines. So it's gonna really make your leather work a lot more flush and well burnished if you use a belt sander to even up your leather after the contact cement is dried. So, and of course, after we do the belt sander, we go back and we'll clean up those edges again. By the way, I'm not a self-professed expert in leatherwork. I'm sure that I'm doing it wrong. You know, I guess I've been lucky that you know, I've been doing this for less than a year, and the stuff that I create, you know, I've got a natural talent for it. It's the bottom line, and so it's just something that, you know, I was able to take to pretty quickly, and I've not been trained. I'm completely self-taught, and I started. You know, it's the first collar I've ever made, so. And the mechanics are the mechanics. But as far as, you know, making things more aesthetically pleasing, I guess I just came by it naturally. But if I'm doing things wrong, you know, and you're good at this, then please drop me in the comments and let me know any kind of suggestions that you may have where I could be doing things easier. I know that I don't do things as efficiently as I could. So all of my holes are cut, and now comes the long, tedious part of sewing. I'm not going to show you all of the sewing. I don't even think I recorded all of it. I only recorded the beginning of it, so I do have other tutorials on saddle stitching, and that's how I did this. And I used my stitching awl from Tandy, my diamond stitching awl. I love that thing. I guess I don't have the footage either of me attaching the buckle, and for that I apologize, but as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Those are just rivets that are holding it together, and there's 2 rivets holding it together right there. And we needed, you know, to make sure that we didn't run out of thread, we had to use a lot of thread. So the beginning of this thing took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, because of just having to pull thread through. It was stitching this thing by hand like this was a very time-consuming process. Like I said, I'm used to doing it, 6 inches, 9 inches at a time, but 4 feet. I actually finished it up over 2 nights while watching television with my wife. So now it's all stitched up, and we're just going with a burnish. I burnish it with water, and then I'll use some gum tragacanth, and I'll burnish the edge until I feel like it's done. Using different methods, different speeds, and everything else. I really like the way that it came out with the back of it, and with the back of it being that briar brown, and then the top being tan. I think it made for a nice contrast. There's the gum tragacanth right there. Just makes it a little slicker, and puts a little better burnish on it. I did not spend a ton of time burnishing this particular collar, but the way that it came out, it came out like, the whole thing came out like, it looks like one piece of leather. It looks like one just big thick piece of hide. Nowadays Sarge has put a lot of wear on it, but it could probably be burnished again. But yeah, I burnished it for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And I don't know why. I just wanted Sarge to have something nice. He's been a really good dog, and not that he cares, but it's something cool I wanted him to have. So that's it. That's what the collar looks like up close. I'm showing you the thread right there, and that's what it looks like. Awesome. So yeah, this was a fun project. It took there's my initials right there. It took it took 5 or 6 hours of solid labor to get this done, and it was a really rewarding project. And if you have any questions, if you want to see anything else like this, we're always putting out videos all the time, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if you hit that little notification bell, you'll be able to see more stuff like this. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Hope you enjoyed this video. Share it. God bless. Bye bye.